Hey everyone, welcome back to our channel, where we try and answer the biggest spiritual questions of humanity. So, that was a joke. It's not actually funny. Today we are going to be answering the question, why do you have nitrogen monoxide motivation after spiritual awakening? This is actually a super common question, and most people who have gone through the spiritual awakening process, they go through a phase where they just feel totally demotivated, unmotivated about anything. In fact, even to get out of bed in the morning becomes difficult because it's like there's no point of anything, and why bother doing anything? Before we dive into this topic, I would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button, and also forget to leave an honest review on the podcast. It really helps us grow and also reach more people with our message. So first of all, let me ask you a question. Why were you motivated before your spiritual awakening? If you think about it, most of us were actually chasing things that were actually not real. We were chasing money, but we never actually asked ourselves the question, what will I do with that money? We were chasing relationships, but did we ever ask ourselves the question, why do I want this relationship? You know what I mean. Most of the things that we chase after in life, when we actually take a step back and we observe those things objectively, we will realize that these things that we are chasing after are actually not what we truly desire. For example, when you're chasing money, you think about getting wealthier. You think about having big mansions and cars, but then when you actually imagine yourself living in that reality, you realize that that is actually not what you want. And it's not that you don't want a nice car or a nice house, but it's not something that you should dedicate your entire life to. And so after this spiritual awakening, you kind of start to realize that the things that you thought you wanted before your spiritual awakening were actually not what you wanted. They were just desires that were planted into you by your environment, by your society, by your family, by your friends. And once you start to see through those illusions, you start to lose motivation because now you're like, okay, so what is the point of anything? Like, what should I actually do with my life? Because everything that I thought I wanted, I don't actually want it anymore. So that's the first reason why you might feel demotivated after your spiritual awakening. Now the second reason is the fact that after your spiritual awakening, you'd start to see how pointless and how temporary the things in this world actually are. And it's nothing personal against anything in this world. It's just the truth. Everything in this world is impermanent. Everything in this world is suffering. There is no exception to that rule. Everything in this world is temporary, and sooner or later, it will end. You know, maybe you thought that you found the love of your life, but sooner or later that person will die. Maybe you built a super successful business and you thought that this time I made it, but sooner or later that business is gonna fall apart. Everything that we experience in this world is temporary. Nothing lasts forever, and sooner or later, it will end. And so, once you start to realize that the things that you pursue in this life are actually temporary, you know, they don't last forever. They're not going to be here in the future. And so why bother chasing them? That is another reason why you might be feeling demotivated right now. Thirdly, after a spiritual awakening, you tend to lose interest in normal day-to-day activities. For example, watching TV doesn't entertain you anymore. You can't watch Netflix. You can't watch movies. You can't watch YouTube videos because you feel like, okay, this is just entertainment. It's just distraction. It's not helping me grow. It's not helping me evolve. And so you lose interest in those things. Also, maybe before you used to hang out with some friends and you went to parties and stuff like that, but now you don't really feel like doing it anymore. You don't really feel like hanging out with them because maybe you realize that those people are not on the same path as you. They don't care about spirituality. They don't care about self. And so you start to lose interest in hanging out with them. And also, maybe the food that you used to enjoy doesn't taste good to you anymore. The movies that you used to watch don't make sense to you anymore. The books that you used to read don't make sense to you anymore. Everything around you has changed. And so that is another reason why you feel you do or not want to participate in this world anymore. Because it doesn't resonate with you on a deep level. The fourth reason why you might be feeling demotivated after your spiritual awakening is the fact that before your spiritual awakening, you were actually pursuing things that you thought were actually the things that you needed to pursue. But after your spiritual awakening, you realize that that is not true. You realize that you are actually on the wrong path and that you need to start walking on the right path. But you don't really know what that path is. And so you are confused. You're like, okay, what should I actually do now? What is the purpose of my life? What is the meaning of my existence? And that confusion leads to a lack of motivation because you're like, okay, what is the point? You know, I am willing to work hard for something that I believe in, but right now you don't really know what to believe in. You don't really know what your life purpose is. And so you're just waiting until you get that clarity. And the fifth reason why you might be feeling demotivated after your spiritual awakening is the fact that you might have started to develop some spiritual gifts. For example, you might have started to develop your psychic abilities. Maybe you have started to have visions, you have dreams, you have insights. Maybe you've become a healer. Maybe you've become a clairvoyant. You have started to access past life regression. Whatever it is, maybe you have developed these spiritual gifts after your spiritual awakening. And you're like, okay, I'm not going to use these gifts to help other people, to benefit from other people, to help the world in any way. I'm not going to use these gifts. In fact, you might even think that, you know what, maybe I shouldn't have these gifts. Maybe these gifts are just too much for me to handle. And so that can lead to a lack of motivation because you're like, okay, I have these gifts, but what do I do with them? If you've made it this far, it means that you're interested in growing further and you want to receive some of our free content. So we have created a free course called Meditation for Beginners. It's going to be delivered to your email address. All you have to do is click the link in the description below. Okay, so now that we've talked about the 5 reasons why you might be feeling demotivated after your spiritual awakening, let me share with you some ways to overcome this lack of motivation. First of all, accept what is happening. Know that what you're going through is a part of your spiritual awakening process. Know that it is normal to feel this way. Don't try and fight it. Don't try and resist it. Just allow yourself to go through this phase because it is temporary. It will pass. Secondly, reflect on your values. Think about what is important to you. What do you stand for? What do you believe in? And when you have clarity about your values, it's gonna be easier for you to find motivation because now you know what you want to live by. Thirdly, start setting small goals. So maybe at first you won't have the motivation to set big goals, which is totally fine. Start setting small goals that you can achieve every single day. And when you achieve those small goals, you will feel a sense of accomplishment, and then you will feel motivated to do bigger things. Fourthly, surround yourself with people who inspire you. Spend time with people who are spiritually awakened. Spend time with people who are on the same path as you. People who understand what you're going through. People who can support you on your journey. And lastly, keep learning. Keep expanding your consciousness. Keep reading books. Keep watching videos. Keep listening to podcasts. Keep learning new things because knowledge is power. The more you learn, the more you grow. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it brought you value and I hope that you have a wonderful day.